As a Marine, I was taught to fight and fight hard for as long as it takes to prevail. We will continue this battle.
Verdict in the Oliver North criminal trial. Guilty on 3 of 12 criminal counts in the Iran-Contra wheeling and dealing case.
0 and liftoff.
And Space Shuttle Atlantis goes up, carrying the first U.S. planet-exploring spacecraft in a decade, the Magellan mission to Venus. This is the CBS Evening News. Dan Rather reporting. Good evening. First about the North verdict. Oliver North tonight is a convicted felon. He faces possible prison time. The jury, hearing the missiles for Iran, what happened to the money case, found North guilty 3 criminal counts. Guilty of aiding and abetting and obstructing Congress, guilty of shredding and falsifying evidence, guilty of receiving an illegal gratuity. North was found not guilty on 9 other counts. Throughout it all, North's defense was primarily to try to portray himself as a fall guy for higher-ups and their cover-ups. Today, President Bush denied and disputed documents presented at the North trial, documents raising new questions about whether Mr. Bush played a role in trying to funnel secret, possibly law-breaking aid to Nicaraguan rebels and constitutional questions flowing from that. CBS News law correspondent Rita Braver begins our coverage.
With his wife Betsy at his side, Oliver North traveled to the federal courthouse. Outside, a crowd of supporters gathered. Inside, the jury was ready with its verdict. The 9 women and 3 men looked somber and tense as they entered the packed courtroom. Foreman Denise Anderson appeared on the verge of tears as she passed the verdict sheet to Judge Gerhardt Gazelle. There were murmurs of surprise as the judge read the first 5 counts one by one, all not guilty. All counts involving false statements and obstruction of Congress when members were trying to learn the truth about Oliver North's pro-Contra activities. But there were gasps when the judge came to count number 6, guilty of aiding and abetting the obstruction of Congress in November 1986 by creating a false chronology of U.S. arms sales to Iran in exchange for hostages. Then it was not guilty again on count 7, obstructing a presidential inquiry, and count 8, making false statements during former Attorney General Edwin Meese's Iran-Contra fact-finding mission for President Reagan. Next, the judge announced 2 more guilty counts. Guilty of altering, destroying, concealing, and removing White House documents as the Iran-Contra affair began unraveling in 1986. Guilty of accepting an illegal gratuity, a home security system provided by Iran-Contra arms merchant Richard Secord. But it was not guilty again on using Contra traveler's checks for Oliver North's own purposes and for conspiring to defraud the U.S. tax system by soliciting contributions for the Contras. North sat impassively through it all. When it was over, he embraced his wife. Later, he called it a partial vindication.
It was certainly our hope that this battle would be behind us by now, but today's was not a complete victory. Nonetheless, we are absolutely confident of the final outcome. As a Marine, I was taught to fight and fight hard for as long as it takes to prevail.
There will be post-trial motions filed. There will be an appeal filed. There are many extraordinary and unprecedented legal issues to address.
But prosecutor John Kecker, like North, a former Marine combat veteran, claimed victory.
The jury has spoken after a long and difficult trial, and the principle that no man is above the law has been vindicated.
Legal experts are equally divided over who won and who lost.
I think both sides can claim victory here, but it wasn't as severe with Oliver North as it might well have been.
Defense lawyers and prosecutors regard it as a victory for the prosecutor if the defendant is convicted of almost anything.
So far, the jurors are not explaining why and how they reached their verdict. North faces up to 10 years in jail and $750,000 in fines. The judge has set June 23rd for his sentencing, Dan.
And Rita, when we look at the verdict, what are the lawyers around Washington saying that they've learned from this jury trial, or is it too early to say?
I think there's a great deal of puzzlement from them. The one thing that people have been saying to me today is that maybe Oliver North was not, in the jury's eyes, what he described himself as, a pawn in a chess game played by giants. But maybe he was not a king either. He was somebody, maybe a knight, a little bit in between, who had some say over where he was going. And the jury seems to have settled on a compromise verdict here.
Rita Braver, thank you very much. CBS News White House correspondent Leslie Stahl has been standing by at the White House all day and is there tonight with more on President Bush's reaction to the North verdict. Guilty on 3 counts and some attempts at spin control. Leslie, good evening.
Good evening, Dan. The reaction here, not very surprising, no comment. Although officials do admit to being relieved, claiming that not one of the guilty charges in the case has anything to do with the Iran-Contra scandal itself. The obvious question asked of Mr. Bush immediately is, will he pardon Oliver North?
The president may be waving off the question, but no sooner had the verdict come down than conservative Republicans in Congress were urging a pardon.
I think that George Bush ought to pardon him. I personally believe it was Ronald Reagan's responsibility, but I think he ought to pardon him.
After refusing to answer questions during the trial, the president seemed to jump at the chance today to explain his own involvement. Whether in a meeting with the president of Honduras, he offered expedited U.S. assistance in exchange for aid to the Contras in a so-called quid pro quo arrangement.
The word of the President of the United States, George Bush, is there was no quid pro quo. The records of the meeting demonstrate that there was no quid pro quo, or there has been much needless, mindless speculation about my word of honor, and I've answered it now definitively.
But members of Congress investigating President Bush's role are not satisfied with his quid pro quo denial.
I'm happy to hear him say that, but the fact is the documents indicate that there was, and I want to see what documentation they have demonstrating that there was not.
The chairman of the House Iran-Contra Committee made clear that the North trial opened up a wide range of questions for George Bush to answer.
President Reagan and then Vice President Bush still have some explaining to do with regard to their activities.
Spokesman for Ronald Reagan in California said he had no comment. President Bush said he may or may not answer any more questions about the case. That, he said, will depend on what the questions are. Dan?
Thank you, Leslie. Still to come on tonight's CBS Evening News, Eric Ingberg on the big question not answered by the Oliver North trial. And Peter Van Sant on throttling up another space shuttle. Also Jerry Bowen on putting the brakes on automobile insurance.
Richard Mulligan, grape nuts?
I need my nutrition.
Well, you'll need 4 boxes to equal the vitamin and mineral nutrition in just 1 box of Total.
You're kidding.
No kidding.
Ha shredded wheat.
Get serious, Richard. 12 boxes.
What do you eat all this with? A shovel?
Total, 1 bowl, 100%. That's more nutrition than any other cereal.
That's more like it. 1 box, 1 bowl, 1 spoon.
If it's whole wheat Total, it's Total Nutrition.
This is a warning to household germs. You can't hide from Lysol brand disinfectant. It's hospital type, the best kind you can buy. So germs, don't say you haven't been warned.
I stained this last year, and it's fading already. Why?
You didn't use Water Seal Stain, the only stain with Thompson's Water Seal. It seals water out and protects against fading. So the next time you stain won't be for a long time. Thompson's Water Seal Stain.
Where's the burning feeling?
Here.
For that heartburn, your medical answer is Extra Strength Malox Plus. Where are the gas pains?
Here.
For that gas and indigestion, your medical answer is Extra Strength Malox Plus. Its doctor-recommended formula neutralizes more than any leading antacid. Where does it hurt?
It doesn't, thanks to Malox Plus.
Ask your doctor about Extra Strength Malox Plus.
The jury now has spoken and answered the question of Oliver North's guilt in the Arms for Iran, What Happened to the Money case. But among the many questions the trial leaves unanswered is, why did this happen? The covert wheeling and dealing by North and his operatives and possibly his superiors run from right inside the White House itself. And then there's the question of, could it happen again? CBS News correspondent Eric Ingberg is investigating the use of secrecy, lying, and deception as instruments of ideology and policy.
It began like a good spy novel, with a rickety plane shot down in the jungle, and unraveled for 3 years through the corridors of power right up to the White House door. The Iran-Contra affair made Oliver North one of the most controversial figures of the decade.
I came here to tell you the truth, the good, the bad, and the ugly,
But the ugliest question of all remains, even after the verdict has been rendered on Ollie North. Why is America so vulnerable to decision-making by secrecy and deceit, which brought credibility crises on Vietnam, Watergate, and now Iran-Contra? Some scholars see a structural flaw.
Each party's in business to defeat the other party, and when they control different branches of the government, then the two branches of the government come into collision and try to defeat each other. And if the president knows that the Congress is going to block what he wants to do, as was the case in Iran and Nicaragua, the easiest thing is just not to tell the Congress what's going on.
Which is what President Reagan did. Out of a frustration, his aides blame on Congress.
The Congress was more assertive than usual in restraining the president and, in fact, preventing the president from carrying out his policies.
But Clark Clifford, advisor to Democratic presidents from Truman to Carter, says some of the secrets, like the fund diversion, are rooted in simple fear.
When you have felonies that are committed within the White House, the commission of a felony can lead to impeachment. And that's why I believe that it was kept such a deep, dark secret.
Once secrecy is embraced, rather than public debate and compromise, the freewheeling covert operators can do as they wish, because an invisible policy can't be questioned.
And I still contend that the American people don't want to know those details.
But secrecy leads to deception.
We did not, repeat, did not trade weapons or anything else for hostages.
Deception leads to lies. Lies tear apart the rule of law, a lesson that old government hands like George Shultz found crystal clear.
I don't think that desirable ends justify means of lying, deceiving.
Could it happen again? Scholars say yes, until presidents accept the need to compromise with Congress.
So you have a pattern of deceit. The North affair is not an isolated incident. It's been a pattern over the last 20 years or so.
The North trial provided no new insights into Mr. Reagan's knowledge of the core of the scandal, the fund diversion. There's no hard evidence he knew, but other trials are coming, and critics remain skeptical.
When the risks are to be taken that are so great as are taken here, my experience leads me to believe that they're not taken without authority at the highest level at the White House.
In the end, North was not tried for the actions that astounded the country, funneling $4 million from the Iran arms sales to the Contras, building them a secret supply network in defiance of Congress. Those charges were dropped out of fear dangerous secrets would tumble out. Of all the verdicts yet to come, the most important will be the one on Ronald Reagan. It will not come from a jury, since he is not on trial and is unwilling to be a witness. History will render that verdict. Eric Engberg, CBS News, Washington.
Look at Frank's yard. I don't have a yard like that. Look at that hill. I don't have a hill like that. Look at that John Deere tractor. I don't need a tractor like that. I just need a good, basic tractor. You want to see what I got?
Introducing the new STX lawn tractor, the basic John Deere, with a price that's just as basic.
Imagine it's lunchtime. That's time for a change of pace at Red Lobster.
We'll make your mouth water.
With luscious lunch specials, many under $4.99.
Make your heart melt.
And served in 15 minutes guaranteed, or it's free.
Make you flip with every dip, feel like you've never felt.
So much that's delicious. Seafood pasta, or today's fresh catch at Red Lobster. Imagine it for lunch tomorrow. Try our lunch shrimp trio, just $4.95. Ready?
In a minute, honey.
It's nice to be noticed for what you wear and how you look. And if you wear dentures, it's nice to know Efferdent freshens up dentures and cleans away stains so well. With Efferdent, all they'll notice is you.
Today is Thursday. Rained yesterday, and my arthritis pain acted up. Cold today, more pain. Took aspirin both days.
If you take aspirin often, make it tri-buffered Bufferin. 100% aspirin, plus 3 buffers. Bufferin, if you take aspirin more than once a week.
Now, tonight's other headline story. The clouds parted and Space Shuttle Atlantis blasted off into orbit this afternoon. Main mission, sending the Magellan Radar Mapper spacecraft off on a 15-month voyage to explore the planet Venus. This will be the first U.S. space project to explore another planet since 1978. CBS News correspondent Peter Van Sant has the latest from the Kennedy Space Center.
The shuttle Atlantis in space, preparing for its #1 mission, the release of the Magellan spacecraft, which will begin an 800 million mile journey to map the planet Venus.
We've got an American crew back in space. We've got NASA science heading back to the planets.
It was a mission which almost didn't get off the ground.
The low ceiling conditions make us no-go at the moment for rain safety.
Low clouds and gusting crosswinds forced NASA to delay the launch. Then, with less than 5 minutes to go before the launch would have to be scrubbed, the troublesome weather cleared and Atlantis roared into space.
6, we have main engine start. 2, 1, 0, and liftoff. Planetary science begins as Atlantis clears the tower.
Atlantis' climb into space was flawless, leaving relieved NASA managers with a happy ending to a suspense-filled day. The release of the Magellan spacecraft marks the rebirth of the U.S. space science program, which has remained dormant and grounded for more than 10 years.
All those years aren't down the drain, that's for sure. We've got off to a good start here.
Using powerful radar, Magellan will map the surface of Venus, solving some of the mysteries of that cloud-shrouded planet. 2 more planetary satellites will be carried aboard shuttles in the next year. But some scientists worry about relying on the shuttle, remembering that the Challenger accident wasn't just a disaster for NASA, but also for the U.S. space science program. Peter Van Sant, CBS News at the Kennedy Space Center.
U.S. Surgeon General C. Everett Koop resigned today, effective July. Koop was appointed by President Reagan in 1982.
Over time, they gained a wisdom about the foods they ate. A wisdom handed down in a breakfast enjoyed throughout Europe, known in America as Kellogg's Mueslix. A natural balance of wheat bran fiber, oats, rice, corn, barley, dates, almonds, and figs. Kellogg's Mueslix, bran or 5 grain, what breakfast was meant to be.
Which plant food is best for you? After 10 years of testing at a great university, Miracle Grow rated best. These champion gardeners in the Guinness Book of World Records just heard the results.
It's no surprise. Miracle Grow always gives me more.
Miracle Grow's been real good for me. Didn't take me 10 years to know nothing beats Miracle Grow.
A great university proved it. Champion gardeners know it. Miracle Grow gives you more. Now the Miracle Grow no-clog feeder. So easy you'll feed your whole yard in minutes.
If you wear dentures, I'll bet you know what it's like getting food stuck between your dentures and gums. Like this chunk of salt. Ouch. But Super Polygrip forms a seal so tight it can hold from morning till night. To help keep food out, dentures in. Super Polygrip.
How strong is Extra Strength Tums EX? Heartburn strikes, Tums strikes back. Heartburn's gone that fast. Tums EX, twice as strong, twice as fast as regular Rolaids.
A triumph for consumers or a setback for the free enterprise system? There were differing views today as a California Supreme Court surprised observers with a ruling whose effects may be felt all across the nation. Jerry Bowen has our report.
It's a stunning victory for California motorists, a shocking setback for the insurance industry. A unanimous decision by the state Supreme Court today to uphold the main points of Proposition 103, the voter initiative to rein in insurance rates.
This is a tremendous victory for the consumers of California, a tremendous triumph for grassroots democracy.
I'd liken it to an inside-the-park home run. The game isn't over yet, but it's close to the end.
The ruling allows auto and property insurance rates to be cut 20% below November 1987 levels and frozen till this November. In addition, the law requires a further 20% good driver discount, ends redlining, setting rates based on neighborhood, and gives the state veto power over future rate increases.
We've really changed the way our private sector operates, and the free enterprise system, in our opinion, is endangered.
We are willing to compromise. We are willing to try new approaches. We want to make the system work again.
The insurance industry, which argued that expensive claims and lawsuits make the cost of business high in California, was given some concessions. The court ruled insurance companies that prove they can't make a fair return will be exempt from the one-time rate rollback, and that for the first year only, rates can be raised without prior state approval. though refunds could be ordered if the increases are excessive. That seemed good enough for State Farm, the largest insurer in California and the nation.
We can justify where our rates are. In fact, they're short from where they should be in terms of adequacy in the state.
It didn't take long for the news to spread by phone and fax machine across country, where the industry is battling rate cuts in 14 other states. New Jersey, with the nation's highest auto rates, is the next big battleground.
Consumers have the worst of all possible worlds when it comes to auto insurance, and auto insurance companies have the best of all possible worlds. I think that's going to change now.
California officials say consumers shouldn't expect any big refund checks soon. An appeal to the U.S. Supreme Court is still possible. But for now, it's the law. Another consumer revolt has rocked this state, and the revolution is spreading. Jerry Bowen, CBS News, Los Angeles.
Mystery today on the floors of 2 New York futures markets. Federal agents escorted at least 4 traders from the New York Commodity Exchange and the New York Mercantile Exchange. Officials said offices were searched as part of a criminal investigation of the markets. No arrests have been reported. In January, there were allegations of widespread fraud and cheating of customers at Chicago futures markets, which are the nation's biggest.
This is smooth, creamy yogurt. And this is how your taste buds see it. Add the nutty, crunchy taste of Post Grape Nuts, the cereal with oomph, and send your taste buds on a wild adventure. Oomph it up with Grape Nuts.
6, 5.
Take your favorite flavor of ice cream and add the nutty, crunchy taste of Post Grape Nuts, the cereal with oomph.
1, 0. Lift
and send your taste buds into orbit. Oomph it up with Grape Nuts.
This dry, dull paneling is a good place to do some serious writing about Old English. It moisturizes, helps prevent drying and cracking, and brings hidden beauty to the surface. Old English, oil or aerosol, a more caring approach to wood care. Oops, a little imperfection, but a perfect place for Old English scratch cover. It's a simple way to cover a scratch, touch up the marks of time, or a flaw on the floor. Old English scratch cover, a more caring approach to wood care.
Hart's Blockade keeps fleas and ticks from getting on your pet. Scientific tests verify that Hart's Blockade repellent gives effective flea and tick protection for dogs and cats. With our new test data, you can be assured of both your pet's comfort and total protection or your money back. Used as directed, no other product we've tested is as effective for the control of fleas and ticks. Call this toll-free number for more information. Hart's Blockade, clinically proven flea and tick protection that really works.
2 West German relief workers, a man and a woman, reportedly were kidnapped in southern Lebanon today by unidentified gunmen. Incredible scene in Beijing, China today. A sea of young Chinese filling the streets, demanding freedom and more democracy. There were similar scenes in other Chinese cities, and for the first time, Chinese journalists who work for the communist government joined the demonstrations, protesting government censorship. Our coverage begins with CBS News correspondent John Sheehan in Beijing.
Tens of thousands of Beijing students and workers swarmed through the city, defying a government warning not to march. Spectators applauded the protesters' demands for democratic rights and a crackdown on corrupt officials. In Shanghai, China's most populous city, thousands took to the streets calling for democracy and human rights. In Beijing, rebel student leader Wu Kai-shi argued with police. The police, far outnumbered, gave way.
It's not clear whether the pro-democracy movement now has enough momentum to bring about change, or whether the government can simply remain passive, waiting for the protests to run out of steam.
The demonstrators commemorated the 70th anniversary of China's first pro-democracy movement, which was also led by students. That movement broadened into a campaign against wealthy landowners and the ruthless exploitation of human labor. The motto of the movement then was democracy and science. Democracy to break the old system, science to ease a predominantly feudal society into the 20th century. Today, many Chinese ask what has changed. 89-year-old Bin Xin was among the protesters in 1919.
I was a student, and I was 18 years old.
And what became of her dream of science and democracy?
There has been more progress made in science rather than in democracy.
Some of the activists of the May 4th movement were the creators of the communist system. The grandchildren of that system are in the streets saying that it doesn't work and has to change. After 3 weeks of street protests, an unprecedented challenge to authoritarian communist rule, the students are ending their classroom boycott.
Perhaps I will go to class tomorrow, but the struggle for democracy will not stop until we get what we want to get. Democracy and liberty.
Like their grandparents, the students know that they have been part of historic events. Tonight, there is a glowing spark in China. Some called it science and democracy. Others call it freedom. John Sheehan, CBS News, Beijing.
Thousands of the students marched past the new China news agency shouting freedom of the press and inviting the journalists inside to join the demonstration. To their astonishment, many of them did. In Beijing today, newsmen became newsmakers.
Chinese journalists have been so frustrated by their inability to cover the student demonstrations and marches that there seemed to be only one solution: to take to the streets themselves.
Students have marched before. Journalists have never marched. Instead, they've accepted every kind of censorship in the state-run press for 40 years. Today they shouted, literally shouted, "We are guilty. We did not report the news."
Don't make me tell a lie. Don't make me tell a lie.
There were reporters from 30 papers, from People's Daily, the party paper, from Liberation, the army paper, many of them Communist Party members, all of them marching past their readers who seemed very pleased to see them in the fray. People can get more information from wall posters than from newspapers here, says journalist Gua Yanzheng. On April 19th, he covered a confrontation in Beijing between students and police. The students wanted to get inside a government compound. Gua wanted to get the story in the paper. His editor said, "No way."
The only difference between me and my foreign colleagues is that we were all there, but their reports have been published and mine weren't.
Gua says cowardice has become a habit. The journalists' main demand, simply a dialogue with government officials on issues of censorship. As one indication of what they have to talk about, on China's network evening news program tonight, you could have seen a ranking official meeting bankers, or patriotic songs and dances in the Cultural Hall of the People, or the swearing in of 5,000 young new members of the Communist Party in Tiananmen Square. You would have seen nothing, not one solitary picture, of anything that happened in the streets of Beijing this historic day, the 4th of May, 1989. Bob Simon, CBS News, Beijing.
And that's tonight's CBS Evening News. We hope you'll stay tuned now for 48 hours on Crystal or Crank, the nation's latest killer drug craze. That's coming up at 8 o'clock, 7 Central and Mountain Time. Until 48 hours, and a special broadcast on the North Verdict just after your late local news. Dan Rather, see you again soon.
Crystal USA, a deadly new drug craze that could hit your home next.
Please, search warrant!
48 hours tonight.
This is CBS.